everyone, and welcome to CTN's Happy Tales. I'm your host, Melissa Bondi. Happy Tales features rescues, organizations, and individuals who volunteer their time helping animals. Today, I would like to welcome naturalist and educator Laurel Zoet from Nature on the Go. The organization provides nature programs to groups, classrooms, and public venues to promote an appreciation and connection to the nature and wildlife of the Great Lakes region. And she's also brought a few of her wildlife friends with her here in studio. Welcome, Laurel, to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. This is going to be a fun show today, educational wise and entertaining
Yeah.
wise. So, first, let's talk a little bit about how you got into this and started this organization as your own because you are the sole proprietor of this organization. So, how did you get started in something like this?
So kind of did a total 180 career-wise.
Mm-hmm.
Right out of high school, I had gone to actually culinary school
Oh.
and was working as a professional pastry chef and just wasn't fulfilled in that field.
Mm-hmm.
I had always dreamed of a job working with animals. I kind of wondered how I'd gotten so far off track. And so at the ripe old age of 28, I went back to college at
Okay.
Eastern Michigan University and pursued a degree in parks management,
Okay.
biology education for elementary teachers.
Okay.
And my resume includes time. I've been doing this now as a naturalist educator for about 14
Oh.
years. I've worked for the DNR. I've worked for the Huron-Clinton Metropolitan Authority. I've done the nonprofit sector working for a formal nature center.
Okay.
Spent about 6.5 years up in Oakland County working as their solo naturalist for West Bloomfield Parks and Recreation.
Okay.
And about 4 or 5 years ago, my position was kind of consolidated and it wasn't quite the right fit. So I started Nature on the Go. And the very first program I did was about the secret lives of skunks.
Uh-huh.
And I used the speaker fee for that program to start building other programs. So I've been
Okay.
doing this now about 5 years. Nature on the Go has been around.
Okay. So how the animals that you have, how are you acquiring them for the programs that you teach?
So I'm very passionate about focusing on wildlife in the Great Lakes, Michigan region.
Okay.
Uh, Cable channel TV like Discovery Channel,
Hmm.
National Geographic Channel, Animal Planet. These are great.
Hmm.
However, there seems to be a phenomenon where people know more about the penguins in Antarctica or the big cats in Africa than
Right.
they know about what's going on in their own backyard.
Okay.
So all of the animals I use, I call them animal ambassadors. They need to represent local Michigan wildlife. And so I do have permits from the Michigan DNR for the wildlife I hold in captivity,
Okay.
or I have representatives of wildlife. For example, my rabbit is not a wild rabbit because wild rabbits don't do well in captivity,
Hmm.
but she's a pretty decent copycat. So,
Okay.
yeah.
What are some of the animals? Can you tell us that we're going to see some today? But what are some of the animals that you have at home? Like, what do you have? Who lives with you?
Okay. So some live with me, some are outside in outdoor enclosures,
Okay.
depending on what's best for the animal. I have like little eastern garter snakes and box turtle, American toad, so some scaly, some
So okay.
amphibian members.
Okay. Yeah, so they're not all, like I said, they're not all mammals. You've got
Correct.
birds too.
I do have a European starling.
Oh my gosh.
So once I went freelance,
Hmm.
so Nature on the Go is an LLC.
Hmm.
I'm no longer affiliated with a government agency or a nonprofit.
Okay.
So the rules kind of change on what birds you can have as
Mm.
far as permitting, because your native birds are going to be protected by the at the federal level and state level. So there's two
Okay.
levels of permitting that's required. So I did end up with rescuing a European starling that was thrown out of the nest. And because they're not native, as the name suggests,
Sure.
European starling, that was a little bit of a loophole. But you see starlings all over Michigan.
Yeah.
So that was my exception to the rule as far as birds. And then
Okay.
I have a rabbit, a skunk, and an opossum.
Gosh, this is so
Uh,
exciting. So tell me about when you're out and the programs that you do, and who is kids, adults. Nonprofit, schools,
Yeah.
where are you taking your program?
So, Nature on the Go's motto is providing portable nature connections for people of all ages.
Okay.
So, I go as young as preschool
Mhm.
and I go as old as senior living facilities.
Okay.
So, I've got both a mix of family friendly programming. For example, my chemistry in the animal kingdom is family friendly. I've done that program a lot at libraries during summer reading.
Mm.
And that's where you can have mom and kids who are on summer break,
Right. Yeah.
a 4-year-old, a 7-year-old, and a 10-year-old. And it's like, how do you keep them all engaged?
Right.
So that would, chemistry in the animal kingdom, I bring my snake and my toad and my skunk, and we talk about chemical based adaptation.
Okay.
Preschool level, little animal tales program where we read a story and then meet an animal
Oh, cute.
that was featured in the story. This time of year, Where Animals Winter is very popular.
Okay.
Teaching, preschool kindergartners how do animals in Michigan survive winter. Um, Adult-minded lectures, I've got coyote in the urban environment. No, I do not have a live coyote.
I was like,
um,
what is it?
yeah, but they're probably one of our more misunderstood mammals. So I
Sure.
do have a coyote talk that's very popular. Oh deer, all about white-tailed deer in Michigan.
Okay.
Um, Combining past profession and current passion for nature education, I have the Nature of Chocolate,
Oh,
which is an adult-minded lecture. And then one of my favorites to do is The Secret Lives of Skunks, because they can be quite misunderstood as well.
absolutely. And the skunk that you brought today is not a spring. What do they call it?
She is not fully
Skunk.
loaded. Yes.
Skunk, yeah.
She has been descented.
Descented.
Yeah, and that
Okay.
has to do with the law in Michigan.
Okay.
So to have a skunk in captivity in the state of Michigan, you have to apply for your wildlife in captivity permit from the Michigan DNR.
Okay.
You have to have outdoor housing built to their specifications and understand you could be inspected at any time by the DNR.
Okay.
You then have to acquire your skunk from a licensed breeder within Michigan state bounds. So she did not come from the wild. And if you're wondering, who the heck would want to breed
I'm like,
skunks?
licensed breeder. Okay. All right.
So in the
I've
late
heard that.
1800s, skunks were bred for their pelts.
Ah,
And they were
of
one of
course.
our top exported pelts in the fur industry. You could have a skunk farm like you had a mink farm.
Ah. Okay.
And so today, less than 50 of the states will still see skunks bred in captivity. It's maybe around 16, 17 states in the US
Okay.
because people will keep them as pets.
Okay.
So she was bred in captivity here in Michigan.
Mhm.
I acquired her from a licensed breeder. And the final caveat to the law is that the breeder has to have them descented prior to sale.
Okay.
So she can no longer spray.
Okay. And do you recommend, would you recommend a skunk as a pet?
That's a great question.
Like,
So a lot of
yeah.
times people will ask, one of the top questions I get asked is, what are they like? Are they like a cat or a dog?
Right.
People like to take something they don't know and associate with something known.
Sure.
And what I like to say is neither. You've got to meet the animal where it's at. They're unique unto themselves.
Okay.
So skunks in the wild, you got to think about what their wild uh, family members are like. They're nocturnal
Okay.
to crepuscular. Crepuscular means active dawn and dusk, and then nocturnal, active through the night.
Okay.
And they tend to be solitary.
Okay.
So they're not a pack
Interesting.
animal, and they don't
Okay.
really, but at the same time, they don't defend their territory. Their territories can overlap, but they tend to be solitary. And they're foragers. They can walk 1 to 3 miles a night, sniffing and digging for food.
Oh.
They're rather nearsighted. So they see the world through their sense of touch and their sense of smell. So you've got an animal that in the wild would walk 1 to 3 miles at night, sniffing and digging for food, and is solitary. And you're like, come live with me, be awake when I'm awake, bond with me,
Right.
and don't destroy my house.
Oh
So
my
you
gosh.
really you got to meet them where they're at.
Sure.
Yeah.
Would you say that for, is there any wildlife that you would recommend, say, to domesticate? I mean, what if you take some type of animal that's running around my
Yeah.
backyard, and we see the squirrels and chipmunks and everything? Is there anything that
There's a
can be
reason.
or should be?
Yeah, there's definitely a reason why that is regulated by
Okay.
the DNR. And one of the reasons I don't have names for my animal ambassadors because they represent local wildlife. And there's a big difference between um, wildlife held in captivity under a permit and used for educational purposes, or places might have permanently injured wildlife
Okay.
that can't survive out in the wild, and that's why they have them, versus a pet, versus your
Yeah.
beloved cat or
Right.
dog or guinea pig or, you
Right.
know, something like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Something else I want to ask is, are there any when you go out and do, and if someone wanted to have you come and present or have your program, what's the requirement? What do you time of day? Is it evenings, weekends? What do
Uh,
you?
yeah, so I will travel anywhere in the state of
Okay.
Michigan. I've been as far north as like Traverse City, Bel Air, as far west as Muskegon, Holland, as
Okay.
far east as Grosse Pointe, and visiting my website, natureonthego.com,
Okay.
can give you a feel for program descriptions. And then the best way to reach out to me is to do email.
Email. Okay.
Yep,
That's
natureonthego@gmail.com.
okay.
That way I can look at your email, where you're located, and we can
Right.
figure out what's going to be the best fit for your group or organization.
Okay. Yeah, and I saw your website. It's beautiful. So you have a great informative website too that people can visit natureonthego.com. So
Yeah.
yeah, it was great. Well, without further ado, let's bring on our first
Yes,
special
let's do it.
guest.
Let's do it.
And this is going to be your skunk.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So she's probably sleeping right now.
Because they're up at night.
They're up at night.
They're
and
nocturnal.
I am putting on gloves just because this is a new environment and
Sure,
she gets a
yeah.
little startled or skittish.
Has she been on TV before?
She's not, this will be a first.
Okay.
Yeah. Hi. Well, last week and a half ago, we were down at the DNR's Outdoor Adventure Center because I was doing my Secret Lives of Skunk program.
Okay.
And I can't let you pet her.
Mm-hmm.
However, if you're curious what a skunk feels like, I did bring a pelt. That little guy wasn't careful crossing the road,
Ah.
and sometimes that's sad. But if we can preserve the pelt or part of the animal, then we have an educational tool.
Okay.
And a lot of times people are surprised at how silky they feel. So,
Okay. This actually
yeah.
now do they look similar, or is it just me to mink?
Yeah, so they are
What's-
under the broad classification of mustelids, which
Okay.
is your weasel family. But their family branches off a bit further to the Mephididae family,
Okay.
which is the stink family.
Mhm.
There's 12 or 13 members of the family. She is a striped skunk. There's also spotted skunks, hognose skunks, hooded skunks, and
What would be the difference?
stink badger.
Aside from what would be the main difference that you would see? Is it the type of the fur, the color? When you say these different types of fur?
Size
Size.
would be a big factor, as
Okay.
well as appearance. Hognose skunks aren't. Striped skunks are the only ones found in Michigan. Hognose skunks are found further south. They're the largest member of the skunk family. Spotted skunks are found down south and west of the Mississippi River. They're the smallest member of the family, and as their name suggests, their coloring's black and white spotted.
So similar to Pepe Le Pew.
Pepe Le Pew, yes. Your striped
Right.
skunk is going to be that black body with the
Right.
classic like wishbone white. However, whoever came up with Pepe Le Pew was incredibly creative
Mhm.
because skunks are unique to the New World continent, North and South America,
Okay.
with the exception of the stink badger, which is isolated to some island nations northwest of Australia.
Mm.
Yeah. In fact, if I can share something real quick,
Absolutely.
Ernest Thompson Seton, he was American author and wildlife artist, one of the founders of the Boy Scouts of America. He thought that the skunk should be basically our national emblem.
Uh-huh.
And he justified it as the skunk, it is first of all peculiar to this continent. It has stars on its head and stripes on its body. It's an ideal citizen, minds its own business, harms no one, and is habitually inoffensive as long as it's left alone, but will face anyone or any number when aroused.
Okay.
So that was his justification that this should be our nation's
Emblem,
emblem,
yeah,
because they
yeah,
are
ambassador, yeah.
unique. So yeah, whoever came up with Pepe Le Pew, very creative. That French amorous
Right.
skunk.
Pretty, yeah. Just very
Because there's no
classy.
skunks, naturally occurring in Europe, Asia,
No.
Australia, Africa.
Oh
They
my
really
gosh.
are unique to the New World continents.
that's a
Yeah.
crazy fact. I don't think I knew that.
Yeah.
So right?
Yes.
She looks pretty calm. Is that because she's tired?
She is tired. She's typically sleeping right now.
Yeah.
I've worked with her to have a what I like to call a modified crepuscular schedule.
Okay.
So instead of being active all night when she was a baby, I'd get her up at like 6 a.m. when I got up
Okay.
and play with her for 2 hours, give her breakfast. And then she'd sleep in the middle of the day. And then I'd get her up when I got home from work and
Okay.
give her dinner at 8 o'clock. So she sleeps through the night.
So how did you play with what is playing?
Well, when they're babies, like a kitten or a
Okay.
puppy, everything's a toy, or even a baby human, everything goes in the mouth, everything's
Okay.
a toy. So I would wear gloves because, they just, that's how they learn and experience the world through nipping and playing.
Mm.
Um, and I do enrichment with her. So
Okay.
I have a ball pit with those little kid plastic balls that
Okay.
I put
Yeah.
mealworms in, and she can sniff and forage for the mealworms. I do like empty cottage cheese containers that have been washed out with a little hole in the lid, and I'll put a treat inside. She's got to knock around the container to get the treat out. Paper towel tubes twisted shut with a treat inside so she can dig
Dig
and
it in. Yeah.
forage to rip it open.
Neat.
So enrichment is key. Yeah.
Yeah.
Her favorite game is chase the feet. So
Aw.
our kitchen, bedroom, dining room goes in a circle in the house, and so I'll start running, and she'll just chase my feet. She just
Like
loves to
right
run.
now, still, not as a
Yes.
baby,
Yep.
still continually as
Yep.
an adult. Okay.
And then if I turn, she'll put her tail up and she'll run, and she expects me to chase her. Yeah.
Oh, cute. That
Yeah.
sounds kind of amazing.
So, yeah. Now the claws can look pretty intense. That's one of the big things
Okay.
people notice. Whoops.
Sure. Sure.
She's like, now I'm going to be shy. Um,
Okay.
they're not sharp. Kitten claws are way sharper. My opossum's claws are way sharper.
Okay.
These are claws really designed for digging.
Digging.
So they
Okay.
sniff and dig. A lot of their diet comes from insect matter, digging up grubs. One of the benefits of having a skunk in your yard, they are one of the few predators of yellow jackets.
Mm.
So if they find a yellow jacket nest,
Mm.
they can dig it up and eat the larva, the pupa, the adult. They don't seem to be bothered by the stinger.
Not so.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, you know what? Let's put her away. And we'll
Okay,
see what else
very
you
good.
brought.
Okay.
Bye bye.
Here
Thank
we
you.
go. And
You
if
did
you,
great. Great on camera.
yeah. And if you're noticing she looked rather brown, that's because skunks bred in captivity do come in colors that are different than out in the wild.
Right. Those are the black and like the
Black and
black
white,
and white.
variations
Typically.
of black and white in the wild. Let's see. He might be shy. Let me
You can be
see.
shy. Do you need help?
I think we're good. Let
Okay.
me go ahead. I'll just kind of pop the top here real quick. Check her out.
And this is now, are we calling this a possum or opossum?
This is actually the rabbit.
Oh,
I'm
the
gonna do
rabbit. Okay,
Yes.
sorry.
Let me just set those things down. Hi.
And this is your domestic.
Yes. So
Aw.
I rescued her about 4 years ago
Okay.
from the animal welfare rescue people.
Aw.
Described her as coming from a home of ill treatment.
Mm.
My husband and I have a habit of rescuing the Charlie Brown things in life, like, oh, nobody wants you, we'll save you.
Oh, right, sure.
But so I was drawn to, providing her a good home and also her appearance. She looks very similar to her wild cousins, Eastern Cottontails.
Okay.
So Michigan, we've got Eastern Cottontail rabbits, and we also have snowshoe hares. You'd have to go a bit further north for snowshoe hares. But around our yards, particularly in the spring, summer, when the days are a little longer, right around dusk, you might see Eastern Cottontails out in your yard, hiding near the lilac bush, munching on dandelion greens or clover. And so I really liked how she kind of looked like a decent copycat, because her wild cousins do not do well in captivity. It's too
Sure.
stressful.
And this one doesn't near, I know what are the ones that are really just bushy? So they have, this one, it's short hair. This looks short compared to some of the.
Or are you thinking of Angora rabbits? Like
Oh, maybe, but.
domestic rabbits, there can be Dutch dwarfs and mini lops where the ears hang down.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Yep. And then Angora, they're bred for their fur, because you can brush an Angora rabbit, and you maybe have heard of like an Angora sweater. So she does, compared to an Angora, she's not that fluffy. If we have an
No,
Angora
right.
side by side. But she's got this great, what's called a goody pattern to her
Okay.
fur, which is similar to what her wild cousins might.
Okay. Looks, I mean, she's being really calm and.
She
I know
does.
you said you weren't sure if
Yeah,
it's gonna be too.
she tends to be a little bit more squirrely when out and about. I
Yeah.
find if I can sit with her on my lap, so she's got all paws grounded, she does much better than in my arms trying to walk around, let's say, a preschool group.
Okay.
And it makes sense.
Sure.
Rabbits don't climb trees like a squirrel, so
Right.
they're going to be the most comfortable when they're grounded. And this is her first time on TV, so I wasn't sure what she would think of this
Absolutely.
environment. Every environment's a little different.
Right. It seemed that she'd be a big hit with the programs that you take when you take her out.
Yes, and
The
if I do
kids.
like Mammals of Michigan, or I've got a program about exploring nature in your backyard, kids like this one because she's not a wild animal. People can pet her. She's the
Okay.
one animal.
Sure.
I don't let people touch and handle my wild animals that are
Sure.
held in captivity, but because she's domestic, kids can come up and give her a little stroke.
Yeah, and she's good with them.
Yes. Yep. I just remind kids, gentle touches. Start at the front and work back.
Okay.
She doesn't want her fur messed up, just like you don't want your hair messed up.
Absolutely. And real quick before we move on, I just want to
Yeah.
ask, so do you see an influx? And I know this has happened around the holiday, around Easter time, the Easter bunny time, and everyone, oh, I
Mhm.
got an idea. How about we get a rabbit because it's cute?
Yes.
Yeah, like, do you discourage that? And,
Yes.
yeah.
So when you make a commitment to an animal,
Sure.
even in the domestic realm, like a baby bunny, or people get like baby pigs
Oh yeah.
for
And
Easter,
ducks.
you really need to be mindful of it's not an impulse, a disposable item. It's a
Right.
living thing, and what does its life cycle look like? Rabbits can live 8 to 10 years. Are you committed to that animal for the next decade? If not, then don't get one.
Absolutely. Okay, well, thanks for coming on.
Here we go.
I'm
Okay.
gonna put you back in.
Yes. Here we go. Okay, very
How
good.
how much does that rabbit weigh, would you say?
She maybe weighs 5 to 6 pounds.
So it doesn't look like a real, like I
No,
said, I've
she's
seen
not a
real
real
big
big one.
ones. Yeah.
Yep.
Oh,
Okay. You
uh-oh.
peeking out? So we'll get her lid put back on real
Okay.
quick. Okay. Oh, just stay put.
Great job.
Sure. Okay. A little longer than I thought it would.
That's okay. We don't want it,
There we
for
go.
hopping
Okay.
out.
Cover her back up so she's comfortable.
Mhm.
And then let me set this treat here in case this next animal needs a little encouragement.
Okay. And this is the
This
opossum.
is the Virginia opossum.
Okay.
Yes. Okay. Well,
And we
say hi
talked
back.
about you mentioned we talked about how we often see these animals, unfortunately, on the side of the road, injured or killed. Um, is there you had a great, I mean, a tip I didn't even think about as far as if we do see them.
Yeah. So unfortunately, one of their main
Oh my gosh.
defense mechanisms, you've heard of the
In the
saying
hand.
playing possum.
Oh, right.
Yeah, so the neurological mechanisms in their brain can be overrode under stress, and they do. They go into a catatonic state,
Right.
and that's not very effective against a car that's going 50 miles an hour. So we do see them dead by the side of the road a lot. Now, this is Michigan's only marsupial,
Okay.
so that means they've got the females are going to have a pouch to raise their young.
Okay.
When the babies are born, they're about the size of a kernel of corn.
Oh my
Um,
gosh.
and they're blind, naked, totally helpless. They instinctually, like written on their DNA, to crawl from the birth canal up into the pouch. So if you see a possum by the side of the road and it's safe to stop, we always want to consider personal safety.
Right.
It's a great thing to do. Stop and see if it's a mom with babies in the pouch.
Okay.
Because if you can get them to a wildlife rehabilitator who's licensed to rehab them. Hi, you want some banana?
Oh, and look at his tail.
Yeah, so she has a prehensile
That's
tail,
crazy.
so they can use it for climbing.
Oh, they have it's like little hands.
Yeah.
Like he's got like a.
Oh, should I have broken off a chunk?
Is this a male or a female?
This is a female.
It's a female one.
So they can use their tail to assist with climbing. They can use their tail to
Oh my gosh,
balance
I think I've ever seen.
and carry things. Um,
So one of the things you had on here was that people tend to not like this animal strictly based on what they look like.
yeah,
It's like
so they're like, oh, it's got a rat tail.
it's got a tail, and the tail just, is
Yeah.
yeah. That's
How cute are when you eat. Yeah, but they're not
I
a
don't know if
rodent,
I've
they're
ever
not a
seen
rat.
I've never seen one in person, like
So you can see how she's wrapping her tail,
okay.
around my finger for balance. Um, and I get told a lot, like, "Wow, that's the cutest possum I've ever seen." She's healthy. They are not, they're actually not native to Michigan.
Okay.
As the name suggests, Virginia possum, that's going to
Yeah.
be more their home range. But the human altering of the landscape has caused possums to expand their range further north. So the logging era in the 1800s, transforming our natural lands into agriculture, that's more conducive to possum habitat. So
Okay.
winter in Michigan, they can get frostbite on their tail because it's not protected, their
Aw.
ears, their bare paws. So that can be a challenge. You can
Oh,
see
so
some pretty ratty possums out there.
right.
She's all excited about this banana. And
Wow.
this is why we saved her for last. She's a little more squirrely than the other
Yeah, a
two,
little
yes?
more yeah, definitely get
Huh?
some curiosity.
Here, you want
If
that
we put her
banana?
down, we're not. But if you did, would it run? Would it just
She
like
might
just
kind of sniff,
sniff and just
sniff and waffle around. I
ruffle?
call it
Yeah.
waffling
Yeah.
as they waddle sniff.
Okay.
Um, but she really sees the world through her nose, her
Okay.
sense of smell.
Sure.
And she's got great whiskers as touch receptors.
Okay.
If you see tracks in the snow, and they do look like a little mini human hand,
They're
along
crazy.
with a mini, let's see if I can get her back foot, gorilla foot. So their back foot does appear to have a thumb. Whoop. Hi.
Well, we have to wrap
Go.
up. Do you want to
Anyway.
to put her back, or do you want to finish the show out
No,
with
we
her?
can finish with her. She'll
Okay,
be okay.
good.
I've
Okay.
got my banana. We're doing great.
Okay, good. I
Yeah.
did want to ask you real quickly about I need to know what is it that you explained to us how you got started in this and
Yeah.
you went off started the LLC, but what is it that you knew when you were, in pastry, pastry school that you wanted to do this?
Well,
What's your most rewarding?
yeah. So, as a child, I was always cutting out like pictures of National Geographic, and I wanted to be like the next Jane Goodall.
Okay.
Um, and so when I landed in culinary school, it was more I thought I'd take a hobby and make it a career.
Okay.
But then at some point, I realized it's like I'm so far away from working with animals.
Yeah.
What I love about my job, and I didn't realize you could grow up to be a naturalist educator. When I learned that, it was just kind of perfect.
Yeah.
Um, and I love connecting people with wildlife in their backyards.
Okay.
That people can live near an animal like a possum or skunk and know so little about it. And
Sure.
at the end of one of my talks, they're like, wow, I had no idea. And I've
Right.
lived in Michigan my whole life.
Right.
That's just really rewarding.
Absolutely. Do you still work? I mean, what about when people, I mean, if I'm going to come to you and I'm going to say, I've got all, these animals that are, like squirrels and chipmunks. Do you educate on all those types of animals too?
I can answer a lot of questions. I don't have like a
Okay.
squirrel specific
Okay.
program, but I do know a lot about the different
Okay.
wildlife. So if people email or call with questions,
Okay.
I'll even get people emailing me pictures. Hey, what's this
Asking what
thing
it
in my
is.
backyard?
Okay. Well, I
Yeah.
want to thank you so much for coming on and bringing all of them. This was wonderful, super educational. So
Thank you so
thank you
much.
so much. And that's a wrap on this episode of Happy Tales. For more programming, visit ctn.org, a2gov.org/ctn, or talk to us on social media, #CTN Ann Arbor. And again, thanks for watching this.